Now, water needs to move in order to be alive. Think about water that just sits still, it becomes stagnant and it dies. Tai Chi is unique in the martial arts in that one of its basic underlying principles is that of continuous movement, much like water. One movement flows into the next. Once you start your form, you flow one move into the next, and it doesn't stop. It keeps that continuous flow going. So think about the symbol of Tai Chi, the yin and yang symbol. It's round, it's a circle. And if you think about a circle, there's really not a starting point nor an ending point. Once you get going, it's continuous movement. And that symbol is the symbol of Tai Chi, that yin and yang flowing one into another. And you want your form to feel like that. So today, we're going to take pieces of the form and talk about how to connect the movements. We'll start with some of the easier movements and then move into a little bit of where it might feel like you want to stop. So we'll start with the ward-off sequence. We learn ward-off as a sequence. We don't learn it as individual movements. We don't learn ward-off, grasp the bird's tail, roll back. We learn it as a flow. So this one is really easy to do. As you hold that ball to the right, you're stepping out, ward off, grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. Bringing your weight over to the right, back to the left, and step out, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. Now think about it for just a second. We're going to do that again. But what is really helping you with that continuous movement? Not only that you learned it that way, but it's some of the other underlying principles of Tai Chi are helping you with that underlying principle of continuous movement. Things like knowing where your weight is, feeling that substantial and insubstantial change, moving from the dantian, focusing on moving from the dantian. The rotation is also helping you. So these other principles are supporting the idea of continuous movement. Let's do the ward off again with that idea in mind. Holding the ball, stepping out, letting that dantian lead the rotation, grasp the bird's tail. Now feel that substantial and insubstantial change and that rotation as you let your arms just follow and float. And now it becomes a flow. Ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Even that idea of the ball of energy, gathering that energy, making that ball small, releasing that energy, rolling back, bringing that ball of energy to your right hip as you rotate and press. Then that big ball of energy as you do pushing chi. That flow happens because of all of these underlying principles. And let's do one more. Think about how the breathing also helps you with your ward off. Remember, you're going to breathe in as you roll back. Breathe out as you rotate and press. Breathing in as you come towards your body. Breathing out as you push away. Then as you gather that energy, you're breathing in, breathing out, then breathing in as you roll back, breathing out as you rotate and press, breathing in, coming towards your body, and breathing out. So all of your form should feel like that ward-off sequence. It should continuously flow like water. One of the other movements that's easy to flow is wave hands like clouds. If you think about just doing wave hands like clouds, again, it's your rotation that's helping you keep that flow going. It's the idea of that substantial and insubstantial. Letting one leg become completely substantial before you let the other one become completely insubstantial before you move it. But thinking about what's on either end of wave hands like clouds, it's single whip. And when we learn single whip, we learn it as a settle, as a movement. And it might feel a little bit like, I want to do my single whip and stop. But we need to keep that movement going and thinking about what's going to help us keep that going. Our substantial and insubstantial, our rotation, focusing on moving from the dantian. Let's take that first single whip. As we come in here, now look at this rocking. We're forward on that left, our weight's a little bit on the left. Then we're rocking back so the weight's on the right. And we can start the motion of our wave hands like clouds. Continuing that motion, focusing on the rotation. One more. Coming into that single whip, that second single whip, then we use our substantial and insubstantial again to come into our high pat on horse. We're not rocking back, we're letting that weight continue to move forward. So let's do that again. Starting from that first single whip, feel how you can rock back to the right. Let that water flow. It's easy with your wave hands like clouds. Keep that flow going. And now you're in your second single whip. Don't stop here. Let that water continue to flow into that left leg so that you can come into your high pat on horse. Another place that's pretty typical for people to want to stop is coming into their play the guitar. It feels like I'm settled, I've come into this position, I'm done. But you don't want to just stop there. If you think about coming into your play the guitar, let this hand begin to float as you move into your repulse the monkey. Then as you do your repulse the monkey, think about how that water is flowing from the front leg into the back, that's substantial and insubstantial. That's part of the movement. The arms are also part of that continuous movement. Moving forward, moving back, and opening up, keeping our delicate lady's wrist. We're not clenching our fists. keeping that energy flowing. So let's do that. Play the guitar again. Coming into your play the guitar, let that right hand drop. That left hand starts to turn. And now your substantial and insubstantial change is keeping that flow going, as well as this gathering and releasing of energy, using that rotation. So going into your play the guitar, backing up just a little bit, you also have your white crane spreads its wings. And this is a tempting place to stop. And it's almost like a pose of, I know what I'm doing. But let's go into our white crane and let it flow into the brush knee, which is next. So we'll start with our part the wild horse's mane. So think about holding that ball to the right. You're stepping out left, part the wild horse's mane. Where's your weight? It's on this left leg. Let it continue to flow into that left as you now hold the ball in front, shifting the weight to the right, opening up into your white crane. Then using your rotation to gather that energy and to come back into your brush knee. So let me do it this direction. I'll step back. This is your third part the wild horse's mane here. You're stepping out, using that rotation, then feeling that weight shift. Let the right leg become empty. Then let the right leg become substantial. Left is now empty. But see that movement from the Dianne. The Dianne initiated that rotation and gathering that energy coming into your brush knee. So let's do that one more time. Holding that ball, think about flow. Part the wild horse's mane. Your substantial and insubstantial shifts. Yes, here's your white crane, but the Dianne is already starting to move to start that rotation, gathering the energy and stepping into your brush knee. We want our movements to be, yes, individual movements, but they need to flow into one another. It's not an indistinct gobbledygook of letters. There are separate words, but they flow together into a sentence, into a beautiful sentence of our entire form. So we're communicating with our Tai Chi in this flow. The kicks are sometimes difficult to keep the flow going just because of balance issues, right? Again, our underlying principles help us. Knowing our substantial and insubstantial, being rooted and grounded, feeling how to flow, keep that energy flowing, and using all the parts of our body to keep that motion going. So let's do our kick, smash, and box the ears. Think about all the weights on that left leg. The right leg is empty. Lift, kick, smash, box the ears. The weight is now forward on the right. As we start to turn and gather, the weight comes to the left. And then as we're turning completely, that weight comes back to the right so that we can kick left. So that whole substantial and insubstantial, it's not simply a kick, box, kick. We want it to flow like water. So let's do that kick, smash, and box the ears, coming into our left kick. Now let's come from the high pat on horse. Remember, we came from that single whip and our weight's coming forward. High pat on horse. Let the right leg now become substantial. Stepping out, the weight's on the left. But then we let the weight come to the right, then back to the left. Kick, smash, box the ears. Weight's on the right. As you're turning, let the weight flow to the left, then back to the right, and kick left. Now, of course, we're at one of the harder movements, which is snake creeps, pheasant stands. And it is very tempting, especially with the pheasant stands, because of our balance, maybe not confidence in our balance. We want to, if we can stick that landing, we want to keep it there. But again, we want that snake creeps, pheasant stands to flow. We've just done our kick left. We can flow into this first one. Notice how I'm remaining rooted and grounded. My right leg remains substantial. I kick left, and then I step out and I begin to sink. And then I let that weight shift, moving from my dantian, bringing my weight over that left, coming into my pheasant stance. Now I don't want to just stop here. That's where it's very tempting, right? So let's go from that kicking left, flowing into that first snake creeps, using that substantial and insubstantial change, moving from our dantian. Now as we set that leg down, we're using that ball of energy, moving from the dantian. As we turn, letting that left leg be completely substantial, step into that snake creeps, pheasant stands on the other side. So let's do that one more time. Weight is 100% on that right leg now. Kicking left, flowing into that first snake creeps, pheasant stands. Turn, holding that ball of energy, forming that bird's beak, snake creeps, pheasant stands. Then we're stepping down and gathering that energy to go into our Fair Lady Works, the shuttle. The last one that I want to go over, the last kind of sticking point, is after pick the needle up from the C bottom, moving into fan through the back, but really deflect, intercept, and punch. And I see this a lot, where a lot of people want to go deflect, intercept, and punch. And they want to break it into a little bit too distinct of movements. If you think about your fist here, it's really forming almost like a figure eight, an infinity symbol. It's doing this circular motion that's very important to keep the flow going. So if we start with our hands at the left hip, stepping out, deflect, but don't stop there. Let it float down to your right hip and then circle into your punch. Then you're using your substantial and insubstantial to come into your pushing chi. Let's do that one more time. Weights on the left, stepping out, deflect, intercept and punch. Let that right hand kind of move in a circular motion to come into that punch, and then pushing chi. Let's go from pick the needle up from the C bottom, and I'll stay over on this side. We're facing this direction as we do that pick the needle up from the C bottom. We come up, our weight comes forward with fan the back. The weight's on the left. We can float, let the weight come to the right, let the weight come back to the left, and then we turn into our deflect, intercept, and punch. Let me do that again. We'll come from our, pick the needle up from the C bottom, coming up, fan through the back. Let that substantial and insubstantial change help you. Bring your weight to the right, back to your left, and now think about the circular motion of this deflect, intercept, punch, and pushing chi. So really your whole form should feel like one long, continuous sentence, or like a gentle flowing river that never stops. There's no place where the river is all of a sudden not a river. You let it flow and it just flows through the countryside, down from the mountains. You want that water to keep flowing. Think about a circle. Think about the circular motion or the circular patterns in Tai Chi. And we're actually going to talk about that a little bit more next week. The underlying principles of rotation, moving from the Dantian, being rooted and grounded, knowing your substantial and insubstantial changes, all of these things help with that very important underlying principle of continuous movement.